Good afternoon and welcome to the Three Rivers podcast here on Oneburg for Wednesday, June 5th. I am your host, Ed Troop. Glad you could join us here on our Oneburg Facebook page, Oneburg YouTube, and on Spotify. We got an exciting week to talk high school sports with you in WPIAL football. Our special guest, the head football coach for Belle Vernon area, Matt Humbert, the two-time WPIAL and state 3A champs. Head coach will be joining us here in just a minute. But first, another champion, Brian Carruthers. Brian, good afternoon.
Thank you, Ed, for that warm intro. And I feel like a champion, and thank you for acknowledging it.
How many state titles have you won?
0. The closest I got, and coach is not going to be impressed. When I was in high school at Montour, I did play basketball for Montour. I never played football. My parents knew that I didn't have the fortitude. But I was nominated for a Gene Kelly Award for being in Greece.
That's right. Well, that's important as well, man. I mean, whether it's in the theater or on the field, right? Either way.
That's right. So, I mean, I wasn't, and they didn't even crown me. So I guess I was a Gene Kelly loser.
So you didn't even win. So no ring for you.
I should have just kept playing basketball. It may have come to more championships than the theater brought me.
Of course, you broke your ankle playing basketball in high school. That didn't turn out too well 20-some years later with a fusion replacement.
Wow. Is this just stacking on my list of non-accomplishments? This is where we're going?
Exactly.
This is where it's going. My first 2 nights of my honeymoon, of course, I was too shy to perform. And what else? Where else are we going with this?
That's right. Where else? Well, let's bring on our special guest, the head football coach for Belle Vernon area, Matt Humbert, join us. Matt, good afternoon. Welcome to the Three Rivers podcast. We're glad you can join us.
Afternoon, gentlemen. Excited to be a part of it today.
Hey,
Matt, let's start right off the bat with, of course, I want to get into the 2 back-to-back state championships and all the success you guys have had over the years. But, right now, this is early June. You guys are in your off-season program, your mini camp, and training camp will be right around the corner. Start of August, you'll be able to start hitting and getting into your season's swing. How do you guys feel so far? Where are you in the process here in the off-season?
Feel good. I'm very optimistic. With that being said, I'm very conscientious that we have, a lot of new faces out there that need acclimated to, a Friday night setting. We graduated 17 seniors last year, and really about 15 of them were very key contributors, not only last year, the year before. So I think the biggest challenge for us is just really the puzzle piece of how everything is going to turn out in terms of who goes where, who plays how. And it's as much as it's intimidating to kind of forecast that, that's kind of the fun part of it as well, is just trying to figure out where everybody fits. And I've had the luxury over the past 2 years, and then maybe like in 19 and in 17, where you kind of already predetermined without letting everyone know, kind of knew who would be who and where all the pieces would fall. So, our big challenge this year is that we have a lot of kids that are going to be new and fresh to a Friday night setting, and we'll have to make sure that we acclimate them quick because, our non-conference and our conference schedule, to me, is probably the toughest out of any 6 classifications. And I'd like to think over the past few years, we've had a very tough schedule non-conference as well. So, we're just ready to roll. But I'm optimistic. We had 62 kids yesterday. We had 60 kids today.
Wow.
So it's been good from a participation standpoint. May is a big month for us. We really try to get as much as we can. Mini camp went off without a hitch. We had 3 7-on-7s, and I thought there was some good promising stuff out of that. So it's here, though. That's the crazy thing, right? It's June, and before you know it, it'll be August. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, my gosh, it goes so quick.
Yeah, you got a lot to do. You got to be. What are you wasting time with us for? But Matt, you just told us you're going to the pit week 1. That's big news, right? Aliquippa.
Yeah. Yep, the WPIAL blessed us with that hour-and-a-half bus trip up to Aliquippa. So,
right.
We appreciate those long bus trips.
How do you get prepared for something like that? You're talking about getting kids ready for Friday night. That's a pretty big environment. They're not even thinking about school yet. You hopefully have them locked in with football. How do you start your season on such a big game? And high school football almost feels like it's college now, where if you would lose that game, not saying you will, I think you're going to win because you're here, but all of a sudden people go, well, I guess Belle Vernon's not exactly what we thought they were. It's a lot of pressure.
It is, but it's not. And it's baptism by fire. I mean, you're facing a team that's just loaded. And when I say loaded, I mean loaded. So you're gonna get a good barometer of what it takes to win a WPIAL championship at the 4A level right off the first week. With that being said, the pressure, I mean, like, we were built in pressure. These past 2 years were very pressure riddled. Our whole motto, reject comfort, has kind of was born out of that. And I think really it's something that we all sink our teeth into around here. And, that target's been on our back for 2 years. It's been a very stressful and pressure-based 2 years, but I mean, it's also been a very gratifying 2 years as well. So the pressure, I'm not worried about that because we're used to that. That's always there. And if you really look prior to the state championships, I mean, you'd see that, we've averaged 10 wins a game or a season over the past, and since 2015, we've been at Hines 4 times. So that pressure of always compete for championships is here. I don't think that anyone is not a stranger to that. But yeah, awesome. And also, with that being said, if you look at the barometer of how our seasons went, 2 years ago, we lost too quick. We lost too early. We lost McKeesport. We lost Penn Trafford, and those teams we beat 2 years prior to that. And I think those 2 games really helped reacclimate us, maybe deflated us a little bit. And sometimes, you need to lose to win. I hate to say that, and that's not the best thing that a coach wants to sit there and say. But I also think that I try to take a different perspective of a lot of coaches and a lot of people in a leadership position, that, like, losing is a prevalent thing in life. I mean, if you're only looking at one way in the straight lane, then you're going to fail these kids whenever they got mortgages and marriages and things of that nature. So,
Amen,
the best thing you have to be is realistic and rational.
Wow, dude. I mean, I'm ready to move my kids to Belle Vernon just going to be hearing that.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, if you're not taking care of if those kids aren't doing what they're doing for 3 hours down the football field in June 5th, then it's not going to be productive come August 31st or a date to that nature. So, I mean, I think we live in that. We live and embrace that reality that, like, everything you get is earned. And at the end of the day, no one cares. No one's going to care in life. You just have to roll up your sleeves and you have to just keep chopping wood, and you got to keep going after it. So to kind of get back to Aliquippa early, again, we lost 2 in 2022, and then we were able to turn things around, had a big win against TJ week 4. And then we were able to kind of, win every game until week 15 in the state championship. Last year, we started off hot. We're a 3A team. We beat a phenomenal program, Penn Trafford, handedly. We were able to beat McKeesport in overtime, and we felt good going into that TJ game. And out of the 48 minutes, we were winning 45 of them, and then we just kind of sabotaged ourselves at the end of the game, and they won. And at the end of the day, we didn't blink an eye. I mean, because it was early on in the season. And again, sometimes growing pains are necessary for long-term gains. And, it's something that you don't focus on too much, I mean, when they said we're playing Aliquippa, okay, all right. I mean, at the end of the day, we're actually scrimmaging them. So I'm more disgruntled that I have to take the 1.5-hour trip bus ride up there. But, I mean, we were going up there to scrimmage them anyway. So if they make it a game, they make it a game. It is what it is. But I think as a leader of an organization, you just have to put everything in perspective. And the nice thing is I have that real world tangible experience that the kids have been a part. That, like, if you're not successful this week or that week, it's all about winning games in November. It's all about getting better. And there has to be a maturation process and a growth model from week 1 to week 10. And if you're following that process, that's the goal, So I think we'll be ready mentally. Like I said, though, I feel and I'm sure some people can look and compare and contrast. I think we have the toughest schedule out of all 6 classifications.
We're talking with the head football coach for Belle Vernon area, the 2-time WPIAL and state champion, Matt Humbert. And Coach Humbert, you've had the pleasure of coaching some pretty good athletes over the years, especially here recently. And one of those top names, Quentin Martin, who's now, of course, at Penn State. And your big running back the last few years, very good defensive back as well. And it's funny, on Mother's Day weekend, I was visiting my sister and my brother-in-law, who's a huge Penn State fan, in Belle Vernon. And he said, "Hey, I want to show you the spring Penn State game." And I'm like, I could care less about the spring Penn State game. I'm a pick guy. But he said, "No, I want to show you. He goes, "I think you want to see this." So he puts it on YouTube, and next thing you know, I'm watching Quentin Martin getting time, varsity time with Penn State and scoring touchdowns in their spring game this past spring when he hasn't even graduated from high school yet, of course, getting a head start out there. Talk about Quentin Martin, the player he was for you these last few years, and now, of course, playing for Penn State.
Quentin's he's a culture changing program changer. I mean, he really is. I mean, the biggest thing that I like to talk about Quentin is I really, and I've always took this stance with college coaches, like if you want me to, I'll sit here and tell you what he does well on a Friday night. I mean, in this day and age of 2024, all you have to do is click a button and you can see everything. You can watch his whole body of work. So I don't really need to focus on that. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of really talented football players out there. It's just, do those talented football players have the willingness to do things that might make them uncomfortable and to separate them from other people? And Quentin had that willingness. And I think Quentin's always been around a good support cast of coaches and people in his corner that have really made sure to keep him tunnel vision into what's important. And that's obviously team and individual success. But, you can't say enough about the kid and how he conducts himself. I'd like to think that we helped in that maturation process.
Sure.
Always knocking him down a peck, because I always would play bad cop with him and make sure that he was staying as humble as possible. Because the biggest fear when you have a kid that talented is, are they going to have that diva-like approach to things? Are they going to have that I'm better than everyone mindset? And that's never been allowed, and nor has it never even been pushed. I can sit here and act like a tough guy and say, oh, it was never allowed. He never put us in a situation where we had to flex our muscle in that aspect. So he's just a great kid. And I always tell people, when you walk down there and you see a kid walking down the field for practice and he's smiling and he's singing every day, yeah, that's the type of stuff you want, because that's infectious and that's going to spread. And positive nature is one thing that we really preach around here, and he's the epitome of positive. But again, it's all about who he is as a person. People are like, oh, he's playing. Oh, he scored 2 touchdowns. I'm like, yeah. I mean, yeah, I figured he would. I mean, like, of course. It's because he's not only talented, he has the whole character to go along with it. And that's why he was a steal for any team that would get him, because they're getting a culture infusing kid into their program. I've always preached that he's so low maintenance, but he's extremely productive, and if you can get those 2 things, look out. That's going to be an explosive thing. And hopefully he doesn't listen to this, but he's a Sunday kid. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's going to be a kid that, as long as he stays on his path, he will be playing on Sunday somewhere, because he has the whole complete package. And again, like I said, I'm not talking about the football stuff. I'm talking about the package that really allows you to thrive as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, as a person that can relate and communicate to people. He's so good with people. He has the personal skills to interact properly, and that's what separates him from the average high school football player.
Hey, Coach, it's the off season, so I know for you there is no off season, right? We're ready to go, but it's a good time to chat about some politics of the game.
Yeah.
You feel like there's an issue with PIAA and even WPIL, with Catholic schools, with private schools, almost creating college-like programs in the way they recruit, where you are solely focused on Belle Vernon?
Yeah, I mean, those are loaded, tough questions to answer right there. I will say this. I will say that, there's always 2 sides to the coin to this. And I get it. Like, trust me, I get it. There's teams that have unfair advantages. I mean, that's prevalent, But I also think that there's schools that do a really good job in terms of making it like a college-like atmosphere. Like, I like to pride myself that everything I do, I try to make it a college atmosphere around here, from what's in the refrigerator for those kids to have to drink and eat after a practice, to the facilities, to everything. And I've had big-time coaches come in here and say, hey, your facilities are just as good as ours, if not better. So, we all strive for that. That's a lot of work to try to make that. That's a full-time job just right then and there. I mean, look at some of the programs like North Allegheny, and I mean, those are like college-like programs.
So much money in it, right?
So, I mean, it's tough because, we do well as public school districts and state championships and district championships. That's football. Granted, it's different in basketball. It's different in other sports. So it's just one of those things where I'm a bad person to ask this question because I see both sides. I do think it's unfair. I mean, that's an obvious thing. But I don't know what the right answer is. And everyone has a million different things. And I think one of the things, and this is society in general, is like you might have a good idea over here, but then there's going to be two consequences over here. And you might have a good idea over here, and there's going to be, that's life, man, ain't it? I mean, nothing's ever going to be perfect. I don't know what the right answer is. It's too stressful for me to even try to figure that out.
That's a fair response. I don't think there's an answer for it. To hear that you think it's unfair, I think it's reasonable. Everyone on the back porch talking about it's like, yeah, this is inherently unfair, but what do you do?
And you just chip away at it. You know, I mean, I think the PIAA, and I'm not defending them or I'm not standing up for them or going against them. I mean, that's not my place here. I mean, I think that they get beat up over the competitive balance stuff. And to me, like, I don't know, what else do you do? What are the other plans? What are the other solutions? I'm not the guy that's going to sit here and gripe about it. I'm the guy that would like to say, well, someone show a different plan and let's look at that and let's dialogue about that. But I'm not saying the competitive balance formula is the best thing going, but it's an attempt to get them to try to curtail this stuff, right? So it's a sticky situation. I don't know the right or wrong answer. Of course, there's unfairness when it comes to private schools. There's just no doubt about that. But then we do well, as a prideful thing from public standpoint. And I think that's a thing that we take pride in. You know, we played a private school in the state championship. And I think we took, not that you went an extra little harder, but we took pride that our kids played together from 3rd grade all the way up to 12th grade. Like, we took pride in that. We relished that. That gave us extra motivation. There's something to say about playing with a kid for 13 years of your career in football. And so to me, that was an advantage to us. That was a rallying cry for us.
And that's the beauty of it, right? This is, you get one shot. If you can do it together and be as successful as you guys are, I mean, that's special. That's really special, man.
Now, if we would have lost to Newman Goretti, I'm sure my answers would have been a little bit more towards the other side, being full disclosure here.
Yes.
But listen, at the end of the day, like I said, nothing's perfect. And I know that's not a great, sexy answer that people would want to hear. But I mean, I don't know. You just got to try, and what the PIAA is trying. Again, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think people expect too much. And at the end of the day, nothing's perfect, and that's kind of the model that we go for. And that's what I preach to kids. Like, I mean, we do a good job of just not worrying about stuff that doesn't pertain to us. I mean, unless I can make a narrative out of it to get kids motivated, we're not even going to bat an eyelash at it. We're just going to go to work. And I think that's you have to do that. You have to instill that into young kids. I mean, because just look at where we are politically in our lives. Like, I don't even want to talk about any of that stuff, but I mean, like, it's a confusing, hard time for any American dealing with everything that we've dealt with. But it's always been like that if you study history. There's never been any good time periods where for 50 years straight, everyone's just got along in harmony in a utopian society. That's just not life.
Well, you know what's wild about that, Coach, and Ed coaches youth sports. I coach my son for baseball. It's changed. It's not about the opponent anymore. The first thing you hear from kids is their thoughts on the referee and why the game is rigged or unfair.
And that's why it's my job and other coaches' jobs to not let that even be a thought process. Yes. Everything we do is about us. And I think if I can say that's my contribution to my kids, I think that narrative that we spin here with me and my staff of just no one cares. No one's going to care in life what if you're hurt, if you feel bad, and stop whining about other people and other things. Just do your job. And that's our motto here, is do your job. So the more that I can hopefully get kids to buy into that, and you hope that some do, I think the more that it might prepare them for the world that they'll enter in, where, the tribalism of politics and all that stuff really has, tentacles in Americans, and it's tough.
Well, Matt, you're doing a phenomenal job of it. You don't need me to tell you that. I grew up in the area, went to Belle Vernon in the mid to late 90s. And, Belle Vernon was one of those football programs that had a little bit of success in the 70s, late 80s. And then when I was there in the mid 90s, the late 90s into the early 2000s, they made a run, won a Whitfield title in 95. But then there was a long break before you came in. And the program kind of fell behind and was not that successful. You came in, you took a new approach, the approach that we're hearing here today all these years later. And you've had success behind it now. It's resulted in, as you said, multiple trips to play for a not conference, but a 3A or 4A championship at Accushore. And then in 2022, you guys go 12-2. You beat Avonworth 24-7. But what I want you to talk about is that state title game. You mentioned Newman before. You guys win that game 9-8. But Brian, I don't know if you remember me telling you about this years ago, but the way that Matt's team won is one of the most dramatic endings to any high school football game you'll ever see. Matt, take us through a little bit of that. Playing in the first state title ever for Belle Vernon, and then right at the end, they're getting ready to score to win the game with just seconds left, right at the goal line. You guys come in, you pop the ball loose, you recover it, and you win the state championship.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. That's the funny thing. I think we call it the stand around here. Everyone talks about the stand. I'll be quite honest with you. I don't even focus on the stand that much because there were so many other little nuanced parts of that game that could have either really swung it one way or the other, like how Newman got their first touchdown. I mean, we go and we punt the ball. The ball goes over our punter's head. He turns around to get it, tears his ACL. So then he's laying in the fetal position on the field, and we're all standing like, get the ball, not realizing that the kid just tore his ACL. There's all kinds of language flying on the sideline. I'm trying to keep everybody calm. And then they pick it up, scoop, and score. And then again, the kid tore his ACL. I mean, in a freak accident right there. So, I mean, to be able to come back from that, and then don't get me wrong, we've had backup punters and whatnot, but the one backup punter we used was hurt, and we knew that for 2 weeks prior. But in week 13, like, you're starting to sample with different kids, and it's not ideal. So literally, I had a backup quarterback that came in and did the punting job for us, and he did a phenomenal job just being able to flip the field and do things like that. I think one of the things that stands out is how stout they were defensively. I mean, they had guys, and again, it goes back to that private aspect of things. They had dudes, and those guys were talented. They had 2 Division I kids, and you can see they were high-level Division I talented kids. And really, I'm not going to just sit here and talk about how talented they were from a skill standpoint. I mean, obviously, their coaches did something right, and they knew what they were doing, for the simple fact that I've never seen a defense be able to jump in and out of personnel groupings the way that they did. They were a very tricky team to prepare for because they were base 4-4 and a base 3-4, and they were interchangeable. And they almost just, I don't know if they guessed it, I don't know what they did, but we had to severely alter our game planning that week and slow the game down and call everything from the line of scrimmage, because you never knew what they were going to give you, and they had the kids that could do that. And it's not only about having the kids that are physical enough to do that. So a 5 technique can drop back and cover now. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the kids that have the mental aptitude to ID formations and to be able to recognize formations in 2 different defenses. And they really did not screw up too many defensive alignments until that one touchdown that we had with
Coach. Just not to interrupt you, break that down for a normal person, what you mean by that, because that's pretty hard. What does that mean from an average fan standpoint?
It means that they had 2 defenses that they kept the same personnel, and a lot of schools do it. We do it, but you do it as a situational thing. Typically, that was their DNA. They would be in a 4-4 cover 1. Then the next play, they would go into a quarters coverage with a 3-4. And those are 2 drastically different types of defenses. So number one, you have to have kids that can do that, because now you're going to ask defensive linemen to cover backers coming out of the backfield. Now you're going to ask linebackers to drop back and play safety. So you have to have kids that are versatile enough to do that. But you have to have kids that have the mental aptitude to understand that and be able to know the differences between the defense and how to align based off that. Because if a basic 3-by-1 or a trips formation, you can line up to it 3 or 4 different ways. In a 3-4, you can line up to it 3 or 4 different ways in a 4-4, and be able to do that simultaneously. Those kids were prepared and smart.
So this is 2.0. This is physical, but you're equally mentally as good as you are physical at that point.
I think when you get to those weeks, and I'm not saying that they're not there early. I mean, we've played monster teams the past few years: Penn Trafford, McKeesport, Thomas Jefferson. Those kids are always prepared. McKeesport and what they do defensively, they don't get enough credit because they are very chaotic. They create a lot of havoc. Their kids have exotic ways they line up, but they all know what the heck they're doing. They all know it's like kind of chemistry. They all have that look is very benign. It's very unique. It's never the same, but those kids always know where to go and how to do it. So there's a lot of preparation there. But when you get to week 14, 15, 13, 14, 15, teams are going to have 12 films on you. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have week 1-0 last year. There's a lot of film that you're going to have on these schools. So you're not really finding any new nuggets underneath a rock. I mean, you have to be creative to kind of hold things back and implement them there. Going into that state championship game this year, I think we had 2 or 3 different personnel groupings offensively that we didn't even scratch the surface that we were practicing since summer, because we knew eventually we might need a 30 personnel package. We might need some type of robust read option package out of a funky formation, just in case a team was kind of keying and taking away some of the things that we might do. So, it's just the stand was kind of very memorable. And the weird thing is I got the question for a year straight. Were you worried? And I kid you not, this isn't me just getting on a podcast and trying to be like, oh, I wasn't worried. But I wasn't. I really wasn't. And why I wasn't is because we were in that situation 3 times throughout the year. And our defense really, and I think that goes back to, there's something to say about kids that have played together for 10, 12, 13 years. Those kids were so tightly knit that it didn't matter what it was. They were going to find a way. Now, granted, it could have easily went the other way. There's no doubt about it. But I had that calm presence. It was an eerie feeling. I always tell people it was an eerie feeling because I wasn't panicked. I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't stressed. I just had this weird calmness about me. Maybe it was dumb ignorance. Maybe it was just me being a shell shock, oh God, they're about to win. I never even focused into my consciousness, because we've been there before and I know how resilient those kids were. And I knew we'd find a way. I just knew we'd find a way, and we did.
Yeah. Well, this past year, you repeat as state champs, beating Northwestern Lehigh. A little bit less dramatic, at least for the ending, 38-7. That one was a little bit of a blowout. I mean, you guys got out in front early, never looked back. Same thing against Avonworth. You beat them for the 2nd straight year at AccuSure Stadium as well, 26-0. Nice. Back-to-back state titles, man. That is that's not just a Belle Vernon thing. I mean, that's a WPIAL, PIAA type thing. There's not a lot of outside of Southern Columbia, not a lot of teams that repeat on the state level in any sport every year. That had to just be, at the end of the day, quite an accomplishment for you and the community to look back on that.
Well, I think it's just gratifying. That's the word I always use. Just because, it's funny. I was talking to one of our custodians yesterday, and she was at a couple other school districts prior to coming to Belle Vernon. And she's like, and again, I'm not patting myself on the back. I think it's more of a thing that people don't realize. She's like, Jesus, this is like a full-time thing you guys do here. She's like, this is and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's a full-time job for me, just football, not AD, not everything else. I think people don't understand that. If you want to be a successful high school football program, it's a job. It's a lifestyle. I mean, it's a commitment. And as much as that's for me, it's for the kids. It's a commitment. It's a lifestyle. And I think that's a hard thing nowadays, that it's hard to commit to those things, and people's lives are hectic and there's a lot going on. And that's why I try to do my best to not make it a 5 or 7 day event, so that there is room in the day for kids to be kids, because that's part of it as well. You want to make sure that they can enjoy the part of being youthful. But I think the key thing is why I'm bringing up this as a full-time job is, I think for me and my staff, all the time, energy, hours, dedication since we've been here in 15, and even when we were at Ringgold back in 2010, because most of my guys came with me, to finally get the not that we haven't been successful, but to finally get that taste, and to get the kind of grapes of your fruit of your work. It's just a gratifying thing. It makes it all worth it. When you're not at home, and when you're doing this and you're sitting there and you're questioning, I wasn't here for this, I wasn't here for that, to see the joy on your family's face, to see the joy on your coaches' faces, it makes all that sacrifice worth it. And then to see all the things that came along with the kids, all the things they got to experience, from Steeler games to parades to ceremonies. Awesome. I think those kids realize, that's why you put all that time and energy into it. Because, it's pretty special.
Well, you don't need to know Friday Night Lights is religion here in Western PA. It always has been, whether you're a band member, whether you're a cheerleader, whether you're just in the community. It is just unique and special. What I want to ask you about is what takes Belle Vernon to the next level, not your prep, not your work. Tell me about this gold field, man, because every time I see it on TV, it blows my mind.
Yeah. So it's the beach, man. When I got here, the people in charge at that time wanted something that was eye-popping, and when I got a hold of it, I was all in times 10 because, I think one thing it's my job to do is that, I have to market our brand. I have to do things from a PR standpoint, from a strategic marketing standpoint, because you want to anything in life you want to make exciting. All of the hard work and all the sacrifice, you have to make that exciting. And for us to have something like that gold turf, it's unique. People love it, people hate it, and I love both the love and the hate because at the end of the day, people are talking about it.
My man,
It's one of those things that I think the kids really find special. We're fortunate because we have that special thing here. We're very traditional and legacy based, from the bell to the block paw to the beach. Those are things that are talking points, things that kids get to experience, things that kids will be able to latch on to. We theme it up. If you went down there, like I said, I got to get you out here. We have a lifeguard stand. We have people play lifeguard. We theme the crap out of it. We have beach parties. We do all.
When you first laid it, how many complaints from other programs did you get when they showed up to be like, this is absolutely ridiculous?
Well, so a lot of people do complain about it just because it's considered a slippery surface. And I think the funny thing is I've been here from day one with understanding the pros and the cons of that field. And we got a model that has a ton more threads per square foot. So you got a ton more threads per square foot. It isn't the infill or anything like that. Just think about it. When you have more thread per square foot, it's just harder for a spike to punch it. So I don't know if it's more slippery versus other. We've spent time. I've had coaches look at it, and I think, yeah, sure, it is a little slippery. Then we go and play, and we have kids slip on the opponent's foot just as much as we slipped at our place.
Oh wait, so this isn't an issue. This is an issue where they complain about the visual. I thought it was visually distracting to other teams.
Visual not. We get people complain about the slippery surface of it. Visually, no. I mean, if anything, I think the neat thing is it's really cool to watch a game on it. When we watch that game on a Saturday and Sunday, it just gives a neat little perspective. I think it's easier to track the ball a little bit when it comes to that. So it's part of our lifestyle here. I mean, the beach is part of our lifestyle, and we love it. And it's just something that I'm lucky that I have because I'm always looking for things to draw people in and to have an emotional attachment to. And that beach is an emotional attachment. We talk about it daily. And we have a slogan around here, protect the beach. I mean, we love it so much that we'll do anything we can to protect it. Our state championship rings last year, I had to fight with the vendor because I wanted the gold. This and last year, I had to have the beach I had to have the gold turf on the side of the rings. So it's kind of taken its own, a little bit. And I think the most gratifying thing is when you talk to people and you have kids like, oh, I'm playing in a soccer tournament. I saw Belle Vernon's on our schedule. I can't wait to play at the beach. Like when you hear kids say that live in Armstrong County, like that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? That it's that well known.
Really cool.
Very cool, Matt. We have a few more minutes here with you. I wanted to, I know we talked about Aliquippa right at the top, and I want to talk about the Quips again with pretty much what happened during this past offseason for them being forced to go up to 5A. They appealed that decision within the courts. They fought it for several months. And then just recently, the courts ruled that they were to go back to 4A. Now, the key thing there, that's just for this season. The WPIL realigns every 2 years, and the courts just said this year. So this could still go back to 5A. It could still go back to court after this upcoming season. But of course, this year they'll be back in 4A. Belle Vernon, after being down in 3A for a few years, they moved back. You guys moved back up to 4A as well. Yep. So you rejoin Aliquippa. But talk a little bit about the decisions, whether to play up, to play down. A lot of it's based on enrollment. In Aliquippa's case, of course, it's been based on their success in each different classification. But just talk about that decision because you're the AD at Belle Vernon too. So this comes on your doorstep as well when having to make this type of decision.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've talked about it so much, and I never stray away from talking about it. Just because, it's kind of one of those things where there's so much misinformation and there's so much opinionated. Like I said, it goes back to where we're at as a society. That's just how we operate here. I think the biggest thing, and I just don't choose to engage in it because I truly could care less. I think one of the best attributes that I've ever been instilled in me. It's just I just don't engage in petty drama that doesn't really just help anything. I don't get involved in it. But I got beat up. I think the people that were with me in the decision to accept the number got beat up for some reason here. And I took it as a positive. I took it a positive that we have such strong, passionate people in this community that love football so much that, they're going to do what they can to throw stones. And I look at it as a kind of a gratitude of passion opposed to hatred. But it was just one of those things that was no brainer. I never thought twice about it. Like, I mean, if they said we're 3A, okay, we're 3A. That's what we're going to do. I the only thing I was like, I didn't want to lose rivalries. That was my biggest thought process. I think a lot of people are saying like, oh, they want to drop down and win a championship. Well, to be quite honest, that is the goal, to win a championship. It wasn't like I was like, oh, yes, let's do it. My biggest fear is I just didn't want to lose the TJ game. I didn't want to lose McKeesport. I didn't want to lose Penn Trafford in LA. And we were able to keep them. So it was like the best of the both worlds with that aspect of things. And I think I just was a little confused by it. I think there's a lot of misinformation. I mean, I had so many people, and rightfully so. I don't judge people because they don't know it. I work in this world, so I know it. But like a lot of people literally think that coaches just pick. Like, oh, I want to go play there. Like, that ain't the way it works. It's all enrollment based. And a lot of people
think is there a health issue, Matt? Because what I'd heard the mayor of Aliquippa saying and reading the articles is that, you're a big school district, right? Aliquippa is not. Yep. That when you can play both sides of the ball or have a different rotation for both sides of the ball, you're keeping kids off the field more. You don't necessarily have to do that. Is that true in your opinion?
I don't disagree with that, but I don't know how many programs really platoon like that. I mean, maybe at the 6A level, but like, again, I play McKeesport, TJ, Penn Trafford. I'm playing big enrollment schools, and 70% of their kids play both ways, just like ours. So I don't know how many 5A schools. I would be willing to say there aren't many 5A schools that fully platoon. Sure, you might have a defensive 3 technique that's all he does, or you might have a guard or a tackle but it's not like 90% of your team only plays one way. That's kind of unheard of.
So you're saying on paper you agree with that, but in practice that's not really necessary.
In reality, I don't think that happens. I mean, and when you look at numbers and everything like that, I mean, if you go back to the Whitfield Championship when Aliquippa beat us in 2021, we had 37 kids suit up on the team. So like, wow. I mean, we didn't, we went through a period over the past few years where which makes sense with our enrollment number 3 or 4A, our numbers have kind of dropped. Now this year I'm back up. Like I said, I got 62 kids down there yesterday, and our numbers it's cyclical how it works. I looked at the numbers for the next 10 years whenever we talked about 3A. And again, it was up and down. I mean, there's the years you're going to be here, you're going to be here. It's just one of those things that I didn't put too much stock into it. A lot of other people did. And I think I was always confused because like Central Valley, that when they got their number, they dropped down. This year, Central Valley, they got the 3A, they're going down. Was there all that hatred for Central Valley? Pine Richland won a state championship. I forget the year. I want to say 2017 in 6A. They dropped to 5A. They take their number. They win a 5A Whitfield championship the next year. Was there all that hatred for them? The answer is no.
Well, let me just say what you're not going to say is that Aliquippa is all eyes are on Aliquippa when things are good. Aliquippa wants to be good. They want to be noticed, and then when things go bad, they don't want to see it. Here's a team I don't hear anything about. I don't hear anything about you, so I don't hear about your issues with it. I hear about Aliquippa's because they want to be in the news.
No doubt. I think I was more talking my personal experiences with your question of the 3A, 4A thing. Yeah. There's just a handful of programs that have done it, and I've called superintendent ADs like, hey, did you go through all this stuff I'm going through? And everyone says no. I don't know why it was different here. I really don't. And to me, I don't really care. To see those kids and what they've experienced, if to me, I would have been negligent if I would have not had the opportunity. And I don't have a problem with saying that. I'm not going to cookie code anything. I would think I'd be negligent if I moved away from that stance and said, hey, I want to play up just to play up. No, I mean, we had a better opportunity. I admit that. Like, I'm not going to hide behind that like some people might. I'm not going to say the sexy thing that people might want me to say. And I'm not regretting that decision at all. And when I see those kids and see what they've experienced, I mean, it's amazing that's going to live with them for the next 50 years of their life. Right. But getting back to the Aliquippa thing, man, it's just like I started. That's a tough slope to go down. I see both ways. I mean, you see the roster they have. You see the kids they have. I played them in 2021, And I'll never forget. And it's a funny thing. I'm going to talk about how big they are. Mike Warfield's a big dude, man. Like, I'm a big dude. I'm 6'4". I'm 228 pounds. Like, I go to shake Mike's hand. I'm looking up to him. I'm like, holy crap, Mike's a big dude. But they've always had size, skill. They're a formidable opponent. And I'm not talking about classifications and all that. That's none of my business. But I'm just saying I get it because they are such a pedigree team that have really good athletes. This year's no different. They're loaded for bear. I get where they're coming from. Why in the heck would I want to play up all these classifications? I get where the PIAA is coming from. Like, you have such a successful team, and then I'm not even going to touch transfer stuff. But if they have the transfers that everyone speculates they have, like, I get it. I don't know what the right answer is. And to me, I don't care, really. I mean, I'm just going to get ready to play week 1, and we're going to grind, and we're going to chop wood, and then, we're going to go after it.
Matt, it's disgusting how reasonable you are, and I condemn everything that you're saying.
This is why he's had the success he's had, my man. I mean, Matt, we appreciate you, man. I've gotten a chance to get to know you and some of your coaches over the last few years covering games for Trib Live, and looking forward to seeing you guys again this year. There was an old saying back in the 90s when I was there and they went through some successful times that they don't
let Ed Troop take you to the prom.
Oh, that
wait,
too.
There was a different one. I'm sorry, guys. I jumped in on it.
Well, there was that. And when I wanted to try tight end, it was like, no, you're a lineman. You're no business going to tight end.
Oh, man.
We have our issues with that. Everybody does. So that's understandable. That's why tight ends, H-backs, fullbacks go with the line for 90% of practice, so that they just get in that mindset that one day I might end up here.
That's right. You never know. Live the dream. Right. Live the dream. But there was a saying back then, and it's probably very true for you today too. We don't rebuild. We just reload.
Sure.
And you guys have done that the last few years. You've left you've graduated some big names. Devin Whitlock at quarterback. You got Locks this past year. Braden Locks, who's going to, where is he going? Eastern Michigan.
Eastern Michigan, yeah.
Yeah, cool. I mean, you've had a lot of talent, some talented linemen that have gone to Pitt and some other big Division I programs.
No doubt. And I think that's the neat thing. I mean, if you look back to 15, I mean, we've had some really talented football players here, and I think the key thing is we've had bridge players. Like you have we have complementary pieces. We've had kids that weren't the biggest, the toughest, the strongest. They were just good football players, tough football players, and I'll always go back to our linebacker core last year. Like, I mean, if you guys, I think it was kind of a funny statistic when people look at our inside linebackers. I mean, I think my one inside linebacker, I kid you not, finished the season at 140 pounds. I mean, we had lean, small kids in there. Wow. But again, it goes back to, and I think that's what attracted me to Belle Vernon is, and I think you can articulate that. You mentioned that Belle Vernon had that streak in the 2000s. And yeah, I mean, I remember that. I don't think they won over 5 games in like 10, 15 years. It was something crazy. I forget. I should probably know that. But, it was just one of those things. I always knew, though, football was such a near and dear thing in that community's heart. And I knew the success in the 70s and the 90s, and I knew there's tough kids. I think if anything that I can say that our community and our families do a good job of is we make our kids tough over here. And that's, to us, that's the number one key attribute that we look for in football players and that we hold close to us. I'm not going to say that we're the toughest every single down and in every single fist fight, but I think as you're an alum of Belle Vernon, I think you might be able to credit that. I just think we're a little tougher on this side of the river, and I was always attracted to that.
One of the most unique parts about going to Belle Vernon, and I've been out, my goodness, 25 years now, but I think that's been the same. Is there's a little bit of every walk of life. You're kind of exposed to a little bit of everything. And as a kid, whether you're rich, poor, here, there, wherever, athletic, not athletic, you're kind of exposed to a little bit of everything. And it's not easy. I mean, there are some areas that are very rough, and you gotta get it done, man. And I know that's what made me who I am today. And I'm very proud to be from the community and very proud of the job that you've done, Matt. And thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. And best of luck this upcoming season.
Thank you, guys. It was fun. Anytime.
Thanks, Matt. Good luck, man. And I'm ready. I'll be in any fight with you at any time.
Sounds good. I'll call you up on that. Hell Mighty Leopards.
Matt, we'd love to have you back on during the season, too. Love to have you back on during the season. So
just let me know. I'll be there.
All right. Cool, sounds good. Best of luck. All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Wow.
The head football coach for Belle Vernon, Matt Humbert, joining us on the Three Rivers podcast. Brian, you ready to move to Belle Vernon and go be a Leopard? Come on.
I thought I was a Spartan at heart, Montour Spartan, but now after talking to Matt, I think I'm all in. I want the beach. I want Matt. I want that custodian. I want everybody.
And we didn't even talk about Jake's Pizza at Belle Vernon, and Matt would probably talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, what I thought was really cool is, and he's exactly right, is all of this realignment for us old guys. These rivalries in these games don't make any sense anymore. Why does Woodland Hills play Moon Township? Why does Central Catholic go out and play Carrick or what? It doesn't make any sense anymore. So for him to say his biggest concern was to keep these rivalries together, straight up, man. I mean, this guy gets it, and he's a rare breed. But with that rare breed is he wins, and so you see why it's contagious out there.
Absolutely.
And what about Jake's Pizza? Why have we not been there yet?
I've never taken you there. Oh man, I gotta get you on the Jake's. It's not as good as it used to be. Well, no, it's still good. I shouldn't say. There's probably lots of Belle Vernon people watching us. No, it's still good.
Jesus.
But there's a big debate on North Belle Vernon Jakes versus Ross Draver Jakes. That's what I should say. So that's a whole.
Wait, there's two Jakes.
There's two Jakes, and most Belle Vernon people say that the North Belle Vernon one's better than the Ross Draver one. I'm a Ross Draver guy, so.
Wait, so are they the same company? Like it's the same guy?
I think it was like a family, two brothers split off, that type of drama.
Wait a second. So this is interesting.
There's back in the day.
There's a Jake's Pizza in Ross Draver, and there's a Jake's Pizza in Belle Vernon. Two family members were together at one point, split off. Now there's two locations, and there's a battle within the communities of which is better. Now that's interesting.
Yes. That's very interesting, right?
We have to go and try them both.
Well, let's do it, man. Maybe we'll take a road trip to the Mon Valley and go check out and see what we can do. So,
you think Matt would come with us, or do you think he'd be like, guys, I'm sorry, I got practice?
Listen, we need to do that. We'll go to a practice and we'll go check that out, and then we'll go get some food after. It'll be like a little Steeler camp type outing, except it'll be a Belle Vernon camp outing.
Wait, do people in Belle Vernon go and watch camp?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they can.
Wow, they're sick on this. Belle Vernon is sick on Belle Vernon.
They're very much so. Very much so.
We have.
Here's our long Pittsburgh goodbye. Go ahead.
Pittsburgh loves Pittsburgh. It almost sounds like Belle Vernon loves Belle Vernon.
Maybe we should be BVA loves BVA, right? Matt's great, man. He's been great over the years. I know he'd be good for our high school football conversation. We'll have to get him on again. But he's done a tremendous job there, man. He's not lying. Belle Vernon during the 2000s, after a pretty good run in the 90s, was down for a good while and down bad. And he brought him back to life. Not only did he bring him back to life, now they've won back-to-back state titles. And again, not many schools in the WPIL or PIAA can say that in any sport. Awesome. So, yeah, it was great to have him on. Well, that's going to do it for our Three Rivers podcast for this week. For Brian Carruthers, I'm Ed Troop signing off for now. We will see you next week right here on Oneburg, Facebook, Oneburg, YouTube, and Spotify. Have a great week, everybody.